Colleagues, good afternoon. Today we're looking at the case of Luca, a Year 3 student with ADHD and limited eyesight, and the current plan to move him into a separate special unit. I strongly oppose this move. Instead, I advocate for Luca's full participation in the mainstream classroom alongside his twin brother Giorgio. The need for inclusive education is professional, ethical, and supported by facts. It is not a question of opinion. It is continuously demonstrated by current research and legislation that separating students based on disability is harmful. These behaviors stem from an antiquated medical model of disability, which portrays impairment as a personal shortcoming. In contrast, the contemporary social model highlights that the real barriers are environmental factors and societal attitudes. It is our responsibility as educators to eliminate these obstacles to participation and learning, not to take the child out of the classroom. In this presentation, I will outline the legal and ethical frameworks that mandate inclusive education, demonstrate how segregation perpetuates othering and ableism, and explain the broad benefits of inclusion for both Luca and his peers. To help Luca flourish on an equal basis with other students, I will additionally present useful research-based practices like universal design for learning, differentiated instruction, and appropriate adaptations. By the conclusion, I want to make it clear that maintaining Luca in our regular classroom is not only possible, but also necessary to create a fair, just, and efficient educational system. Inclusive education is both a fundamental right and a professional obligation. Students with disabilities require an education in mainstream settings with the necessary accommodations according to several national, international, and professional standards. Globally, students with special needs must have access to regular schools, which should accommodate them within a child-centered pedagogy capable of meeting these needs, according to the 1994 UNESCO Salamanca Statement, which also affirms that every child has a fundamental right to education. The Declaration emphasizes that the best strategy to combat discriminatory attitudes and create inclusive communities is by developing inclusive schools. Education must be provided without exclusion or discrimination, as required by Australia's ratification of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities 2006 and the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child 1989. It is becoming more widely acknowledged that segregating students with disabilities violates these international agreements, according to Women with Disabilities Australia 2020. In the Australian context, these principles are embedded in law. Students with disabilities must be able to register, access, and engage in education on the same basis as their peers, according to the Disability Discrimination Act of 1992 and the Disability Standards for Education of 2005. With the help of appropriate modification where needed, this guarantees that Luca, like each student, has the same rights regarding the curriculum, classroom participation, and school activities. Moreover, national policy upholds inclusivity as the primary goal of education. According to the Alice Springs Education Declaration in 2019, all young Australians should have access to high-quality, inclusive, and discrimination-free education. Its first goal, which commits schools to helping all students, including those with disabilities, reach their full potential, advocates for both quality and equity. This vision is in line with professional standards, which mandate that teachers support the full potential of students with disabilities and differentiate teaching to meet the specific learning needs of students across the full range of abilities. In the words of Australian Institute for Teaching and School Leadership 2020, inclusive practice is core business for all educators and is not a side issue. It may be proposed that Luca be placed in separate sections to provide specialized support, but the data is evident. Segregation harms people and maintains injustice. A substantial body of research, lived experience, and human rights commentary demonstrates that special schooling results in more negative than positive outcomes for students, according to Center for Studies on Inclusive Education 2020. Segregation inherently communicates a message of exclusion. It lets Luca and his classmates know that he is too different to fit in with the rest of the class. Students get isolated from their friends, lose motivation, and have their self-esteem damaged by this type of othering. Segregated schools are associated with impoverished social experiences, reduced academic opportunities, lower teacher expectations, higher absence rates, difficulty reintegrating into mainstream, poverty in adulthood, and poor preparation for adult life. This is according to the research organized by CSIE 2020. Additionally, ableism, the belief that those with disabilities are less important or capable, is also strengthened by segregation. Reduced expectations are one way that these attitudes show themselves, and they can have self-fulfilling effects. In contrast, research indicates that students are more likely to succeed and accomplish when teachers have high expectations and see students like Luca as capable and resilient. Gatekeeping practices further compound the problem. Subtle forms of exclusions are common for families of children with disabilities, such as being informed that a school lacks the resources to cater to the child or being instructed to investigate special education. These informal exclusionary strategies are intentional attempts to discourage families from selecting mainstream education, according to Mavropoulos 2021. According to Children and Young People with Disability Australia 2020, such actions violate the rights of children with disabilities and compromise family and student choice. Segregation is increasingly recognized as a violation of human rights. Segregation of people with disabilities is discrimination and must end, declares Women with Disabilities Australia 2020. According to the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, Equality and Non-Discrimination Principles, inclusive education cannot coexist with the continuation of parallel special systems. Educational institutions must instead eliminate the history of segregation and inequality and establish classrooms where all children may engage equally. Now let's discuss the benefits of inclusion. Preventing damage is only one reason to keep Luca in the regular classroom. Another is to produce favorable results for him, his classmates, and the larger school community. All students gain from inclusive education when it is properly implemented. The idea that having students with disabilities has an adverse impact on other students' learning has been invalidated by decades of study. On the contrary, substantial research evidence demonstrates that inclusive education results in higher quality education for all students with no negative educational outcomes for students without disability. According to several studies, students with disabilities frequently perform on par with or better academically in inclusive settings than in segregated ones, while their counterparts without disabilities do not see a drop in accomplishment. Every student, in fact, gains considerable benefits from inclusive classrooms such as increased teacher involvement and better behavioral, social, and academic results. The social and emotional advantages of inclusive education are equally powerful. Classrooms that are inclusive encourage compassion, camaraderie, and a respect for diversity. This means that instead of feeling alone, students like Luca will have the chance to build relationships with a varied group of classmates. His peers gain an appreciation for variety, at the same time growing more understanding and at ease interacting with individuals of various capacities. This is in line with the goal of a socially cohesive society that values and respects different points of view and diversity, as stated in the Alice Springs Education Declaration in 2019. Research shows that students without disability in inclusive schools frequently develop stronger social skills and hold fewer prejudices. Communities become more inclusive because of these inclusive attitudes continuing into adulthood. Higher expectations from teachers and access to age-appropriate role models are two benefits of mainstream school for Luca. The soft bigotry of low expectations, on the other hand, is frequently found in segregated environments and can impede students' progress. However, teachers are urged to uphold high expectations for every child in inclusive classrooms, which strengthens Luca's drive, feeling of self-worth, and sense of belonging. The more schools practice inclusion, the more proficient and successful they become. By modifying our classroom to accommodate Luca's requirements, we create knowledge, assets, and an inclusive culture that will facilitate the support of future disabled students. This has been a beneficial knock-on impact on the school community. According to Mavropoulos 2021, the continuation of segregated environments threatens inclusive progress, but schools' dedication to inclusion pushes them to enhance systemic procedures. Additionally, studies demonstrate that when inclusive education is widely adopted, it is both economical and successful. A unified system allows resources to be concentrated in one high-quality model for all learners, rather than duplicating services across parallel systems. The effectiveness of the strategy is demonstrated by international experience. For example, Italy closed its special schools in 1977 and has since demonstrated that all children, without exception, may get an education together without experiencing a loss in their academic performance. And this is according to CYDA 2020. Having established that Luca should be included, the next question is how to achieve this effectively. Teachers may serve children with a variety of needs by using evidence-based practices that have been developed over decades of educational research. Differentiation, universal design for learning (UDL), appropriate accommodations, teamwork, and student consultation are important strategies. Differentiation is modifying instructional strategies, resources, and evaluations to accommodate a range of students' requirements. Environment, content, method, and result are the 4 areas that Maker's model highlights as needing improvement, according to Maker 1986. This may entail providing Luca with several opportunities to demonstrate his learning, enhancing material in his areas of strength, and seating arrangements that maximize exposure. He can engage with his peers in meaningful ways because of these techniques. By foreseeing student diversity early on, Universal Design for Learning (UDL) enhances differentiation. To integrate supports into courses rather than retrofit them, UDL encourages a variety of representational, interactive, and expressive mediums. While CAS 2018 reminds us that what is necessary for some typically improves learning for everyone, CYDA 2020 points out that UDL helps all students, not just those with disabilities. Fair modifications are essential to equity. This might include high contrast displays, assistive devices, or digital or big print materials for students with impaired vision, according to Australian Government 2005. According to AITSL 2020, adjustments for ADHD may include access to a quiet area, brief movement breaks, or regular routines. Crucially, families and students should be consulted while designing modifications. Working together with professionals and families enhances inclusion even further. Proactive communication builds trust and shared responsibility, and parents possess important knowledge about their children. Consultation with students enables them to determine the most effective tactics for themselves. According to Tancredi 2020, helping students express their needs is required by law under the Disability Standards for Education 2005, as well as being an educational practice. In summary, strategies such as differentiation, UDL, reasonable adjustments, collaboration, and student voice provide a strong foundation for inclusion. With school leadership support, these approaches ensure that Luca and all students can thrive. In conclusion, being included is a legal and moral requirement, not an optional extra. Inclusive education is not bolted onto education, it is core business for everyone, as Mavropoulou 2001 highlighted. When we include Luca, we protect his rights, extend opportunities for Georgia, strengthen our professional practice, and nurture a culture of inclusion. I urge the leadership group and staff to close the segregated unit, maintain Luca in Year 3, and make a commitment to inclusive practices. By doing this, we uphold the principles of justice, equality, and compassion that characterize our line of work. Thank you everyone for listening.